Hi, it's Ileana, and today I'm going to discuss the secret KGB abduction files. It's a series of 5 videos with a host called Roger Moore, and these files were shot in about 1998, the videos. Roger Moore himself was a prolific actor, a British actor, and he actually went to Moscow. He went to the Kremlin to do investigations on the secret files of the KGB. What the KGB was up to in the 1950s and 1960s. There was a project called Operation ISIS, where KGB agents went in to Egypt, specifically the Giza Plateau pyramids. There were also military soldiers and scientists that were dressed up as the military soldiers with the KGB agents. They thought it was going to make them look less conspicuous, that they were investigating something in Egypt. I think plain clothes is much better to fit in as the Bedouin, to fit in as the garb of the locals. But for some reason, these guys went in as military. They made the scientists dress as military soldiers to investigate a secret tomb called the Visitor's Tomb, because they had done scans of the Giza Plateau pyramid. They went a level deeper underground, and at first it showed a faint tunnel, and as they went deeper with the special radar, because they were using special radar to scan very deep under the main Giza Plateau pyramid, the bigger one, the Khufu pyramid. And they kept scanning, so they kept scanning and scanning. The tunnel kept getting deeper and deeper, the tunnel shaft. And then they picked up on a shadow, a circular shadow, very deep circular shadow. That did not turn out to be a shadow. It was not a shadow. It was a chamber, a circular chamber that is large. And apparently that chamber, they didn't go into that particular chamber, but they went into another hidden chamber where they found the visitor's tomb in a secret location off of the Giza Plateau pyramid. And when they opened up the visitor's tomb and went inside, the scientists and the KGB military guys, they found an Egyptian sarcophagus, which they pried open, and fume-like substance came out of it, and it made one of the soldiers delirious. So it made one of the male soldiers delirious, and he had to be carried out from the tomb. But when they opened the sarcophagus and that toxic fume stuff came out, when that cleared, they found a mummy. But the wrappings on the mummy were made out of metallic alloys, not cloth like regular mummies in Egypt were mummified with. This was not cloth. This was a metallic substance that the mummy was covered in. And when they removed the mummy with the sarcophagus out of the tomb and 14 other artifacts that were created. When they studied the mummy, apparently it had a facial structure of beings from Orion, with the big eyes, the big forehead, the elongated face. And when they aligned the pyramids into astronomical alignment, they went to 2500 BC and all the way up, and nothing was showing. When they went to 10,500 BC, guess what? The constellation of Orion aligned perfectly with the pyramids, especially in a star system that has a sun like ours and habitable planets, at least one planet that's like Earth and a sun like ours. That's what the scientists determined who were working for the KGB. And what they discovered inside the tomb, written on the walls, were that there were godlike beings who were giants. Giant beings who came to Earth, to Egypt, 10,500 years ago, BC. And some of these giants had wings. So these giants were apparently telepathic. They had telepathy. They were tall. They weren't human. They looked humanoid, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But they had some differences, and they were from the Orion system. And what was written on the walls of the tomb, that they were giants. Some of them were godlike with wings. Some didn't have wings. Also, that this visitor who was found in the tomb, the visitor's tomb, this visitor was a star walker, a being who travels among the stars. Quote unquote, a being who travels among the stars, visiting different planetary systems on various expeditions and teaching already existing evolving civilizations higher advanced forms of knowledge like mathematics, astronomy, architecture, stuff like that. So this visitor taught that to the Egyptians, although I think the Egyptians were already advanced by that time period, because the pyramids, they were built 100,000 years ago when the Egyptian Atlantean Hall of Records was built, or the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records. It's the same thing. Sometimes the spelling, they put Egyptian, then Atlantean, but I call it the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records because it's both. It's both their technologies. The Atlanteans and the Syrians, they both hid technologies, both their civilizations' technologies, in the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records. They both civilizations contributed to that Hall of Records. Crafts, technology, crystalline technology as well. Many different types of artifacts were hidden in those 2 chambers. Underneath one of the chambers is closer to the sphinxes behind. One is closer to the middle, off the paw of the sphinx, going towards the middle of the paw and the Giza Plateau Pyramid. And one is completely to the right of the pyramids. So one is on the left-hand side, closer to the bottom of the Sphinx. The other one is kind of off to the paw, the front paw, extending outwards. Another chamber under the Giza Plateau Pyramid and another chamber further away. 3 chambers in total. 2 of those chambers are are the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records. So the KGB, Soviet Union scientists, military went to Egypt, excavated this visitor's tomb, they took out the artifacts, removed the mummy, and then they discovered that circular chamber with the tunnel system under the Giza Plateau Pyramid, and that is where the Syrian circular crafts are, in that middle chamber, way, way deep down under the Giza Plateau Pyramid. That's what the KGB agents discovered. But they were told to cease all excavations, to cease all exploration and discovery, and to leave it alone and not go any further beyond the visitor's tomb. And they erased all evidence of the coordinates to the visitor's tomb, so nobody can find that either, especially the writings on the wall about the Star Walkers. Star Walkers are the same thing as what I call myself, which is the Star Traveler, a being that travels among the stars and visits different planetary systems. That's what I've done in my past lives, and I still do it now. So it was worth spending almost 2 hours trying to find the secret KGB abduction files. That's what their title is of this video. And there's 5 of them. There's another one about UFOs. There's another one about the paranormal activity and psychics. And there's also another one about the JFK assassination and the Naughty Files. I'll just call them the Naughty Files. You can guess what that is about. Blackmail and other things. There were those files too. So there's 5 videos in total about what the KGB had documented in the 1950s, 1960s. And Dr. Viktor Ivanovich is the prime speaker of the first episode discussing Egypt. There's also other experts discussing similar things in that video. There's also a woman whose parents went missing. They disappeared. They were part of something of a following called the Followers, and it was a cult, and they got coordinates and a time when Osiris would be returning back to Egypt as part of the Ascension Project. Somehow these people, this group of people, scientists, physicists, these were smart people that took plane rides and bus rides from Kremlin and other parts of Moscow all the way to Egypt, went to the pyramids, the Giza Plateau pyramids at night, shot video. They were shooting video as they unloaded from the bus to the pyramids, and they saw a huge light in the sky. They were holding up their hands, looking up at the sky at night, and then they disappeared. All of the group disappeared. The Russian visitors. They were called the Russian visitors. The tourists who disappeared in Egypt was a group of 12, 20 people that went there. And the video footage shows them seeing a very bright light shining at all of them as a group. Then the camera becomes wobbly. They disappear. The camera falls to the ground. And then there's a woman speaking about her parents disappearing and that video being shown to her years later. And she's looking at the footage on the television screen and she's saying, "That's my mom and my dad. Oh my goodness. They disappeared. They were abducted." That's what the video makes it seem like. These folks were never found. They disappeared. There's video footage of what looks like a very first abduction case. And it's a bit weird. There's also video footage of that visitor's tomb being excavated, them opening up the sarcophagus, examining the mummy, taking out the artifacts, things being created, the walls being shown of the tomb. It is black and white video, black and white. It's really old, but it's certainly intriguing footage to consider. The visitor's tomb and the Russian tourists disappearing in the Giza Plateau by the pyramids. That video footage was also included, and it took me 2 hours to track down this particular episode. It's episode number 1 because it's really old. It's 1998, these video files, and it was remastered in 2001, slightly updated and the video being cleaned up for better quality. It's certainly, if you take your time to look, you can find these videos, and I did download the first episode. The other stuff about the UFOs, I looked at it and it shows UFO footage of the fighter jets pursuing UFOs. So for anyone interested in the complete set, you can certainly watch all of it. I just watched the abduction files because they do correlate with my remote viewing of stuff I've done about Egypt, and going back with Janaea, my higher self, talking to me about Egypt, talking to Calypso, my past life self as the Egyptian priest and architect. He was there 100,000 years ago when the Giza Plateau pyramids were being built and the Sphinx. He was building them. He was physically there. Janaea is my higher self, and she's always encouraged me to study Egypt, to connect more with Egypt, because she knew that I had a past life that I needed to explore more. Then Jaya, the Arcturian friend that I have, she actually took me back 100,000 years ago to Egypt several days ago. So we had a look at the Syrians, the Atlanteans, the pyramid structures, the power plants, the crafts, the chambers, and then I drew all of that out, and I remote viewed Egypt several times as well in past projects. And what I saw in those KGB files, they include letters, official documentation from the KGB files about the record of Project Isis, which was the excavation and exploration of the visitor's tomb. They include all the documentation, and they talk about the Chamber of Knowledge, which is the Egyptian Atlantean Hall of Records, or the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records, same thing. Some people intertwine the names. Again, I call it the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records. But sometimes it goes the other way around. What's in that video, the first episode, very similar to what my remote viewing work has been focusing on. what happened in Egypt and what's there currently. It just, a lot of corroboration, a lot of information that is very similar to my project work. So I'm glad that I actually saw this episode and that there's some evidence that there is an Egyptian Hall of Records, Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records, joint halls of records, 2 chambers, according to what I saw when I went to Kemet, ancient Egypt, with Jaya. I saw 2 halls of records, 2 chambers, the Egyptian Atlantean Hall of Records, or the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records, however you want to call it. It has artifacts of both those civilizations that were galactic humanoids who founded Atlantis 2 million years ago. It was the Syrians and the Atlanteans together. Then the Syrians branched off to Egypt about 300,000 years ago, built the pyramids 100,000 years ago. They were building pyramids even before Egypt, but in other parts of the world. Think Machu Picchu, think the Chinese pyramids, the Mayan pyramids in Mexico, Tiwanaku, and other places. There's many different pyramids, and both these civilizations built pyramids. They influenced humanoid civilizations that were already on Earth before they came. There were other humanoids here, not as advanced as these galactic humanoids that came, but they were evolving civilizations that the galactic humans taught more advancements and gave them advancements about how to build pyramids. And the Maldakians had built pyramids on Mars. When Maldak was destroyed, the Maldakians went to Mars and built pyramids and their civilizations. And they mostly went underground. Some of them left remnants of the pyramids of their cultures because they did influence Mars quite a bit. So I'm trying to connect all the puzzle pieces through doing research, trying to find evidence of any documentation concerning the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records, if there's been any expeditions and excavations and archaeological projects. And it seems like the KGB was involved in the first archaeological excavation project to Egypt, to the visitor's tomb, because they were looking for evidence of how to build anti-gravity propulsion vehicles, UFOs. They were after artifacts that use anti-gravity UFOs. They were looking to reverse engineer building their own UFOs. I think they found that too, but they also found the visitor's tomb, which I don't think is actually the main chamber of the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records, but they came very close to that. They didn't go that far. They had to go down deeper under the pyramids to get to that, but they came very close. They actually found it with Project ISIS, with the deep scanning, the underground deep scanning. So they found the evidence for the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records. It even shows the chamber, the scan of the chamber and the tunnel under the Giza Plateau main pyramid. That's shown in the first episode. That's what I was looking for. that kind of evidence. In the documentation, was shown of the manifests collected from the visitor's tomb, what artifacts they took. There was a manifest of 14 artifacts plus the sarcophagus with the body of the extraterrestrial visitor. Didn't come from Earth, came from the Orion system. According to the alignment of the Giza Plateau pyramids and the Sphinx, 10,500 BC. Wow, very interesting. Thank you so much, and namaste.